Hi, everyone. Hope you've had a great holiday weekend. There's still a little bit more to go as we are watching this. And we're looking at the month of April. This is the month ahead for April 2024 as we build up to the South African elections next month. Don't forget, over the course of April, there'll be a couple of extra videos, and especially during May as we work up to the election itself. So make sure you subscribe, stay tuned to all those things to come back and see what the predictions are for what unfolds before us. April itself is quite an important month in terms of the run up to the election and really in terms of South Africa's future as a whole. I've said it a few times, and it is something that's really quite important, and that is as we now approach our 30th birthday, 2930 is an extremely important time in the history of a person, the history of a nation as well. So we are at a critical junction point of our identity. Who are we as a nation, and what does that mean? The last time we had a 29, 30-year cycle in this country was when the 1961 republic, the apartheid republic, was dismantled in 1990 by the then President F.W. de Klerk, making his announcements that would unban the ANC, Nelson Mandela, the PSC, all the various banned organizations, and lead to the birth of the democracy in 1994. Now, 29, 30 years have gone by again since that time. Doesn't mean we have to dismantle and start a whole new country again, not at all. But it does mean we question our identity and we kind of have to grow up at this point. So in the last little while, South Africa's submission to the International Court of Justice with regards to the situation in Israel, Gaza, was something that, while a lot of local critics said the government should be looking at its own issues and all the problems they've caused here, and it's a distraction, and all of those things may be true. But what is also true is that South Africa stood up to its original template of we stand for democracy and opposing injustice, and most importantly, opposing oppression of a people that had been done so violently in this country. And South Africa has an obligation not to stand by while that happens elsewhere in the world. So, local situation notwithstanding, it was a question of South Africa's identity and South Africa's image that also led them to the International Court of Justice, and which, beyond those things, is a question that we face in the country today. Because apart from what's happening elsewhere in the world, looking at what's happening in our own country, we have the question of what does it really mean to be a South African? Are we living up to the hopes and ideals of the people who shaped this country in the early 90s and who struggled, suffered, and died for this country in the many decades leading up to that? So that is why the question has arisen, and why we all know this is a critical election, because we've arrived at this identity point. So some of you have probably heard of the Saturn return, that as human beings, as people, we also have a big turning point around the age of 29 or 30, when we become adult, finally committed to our role in the world as a grown-up. So South Africa did that in 1991, when the process of negotiation began to formulate this country and actually grow up and stand in the world as an independent, authentic part of the world, not the isolated apartheid republic that was still a vestige of the colonial era. And now we do it again as we stand up to the world and say, right, we're finally working out ourselves. Let's stand up in the world and be something. So our position at the International Court of Justice has a great relevance for us, because apart from standing up for injustice and hopefully getting something done about it, we also attract the attention of the rest of the world that says, oh, remember them. Oh, maybe we should listen to them, or should we listen to them? Well, right now we do see that's beginning to happen. We see Ireland making a note that they're beginning to consider what we've said in a whole new way, and maybe join up with us in our stance. And there are other countries that will pay attention to it as well. When we look at South Africa's chart for April, we see very powerfully the theme of identity and the theme of who are we. Certainly, the classical sign of stepping up to the plate, standing up and saying, this is who we are, take it or leave it, and acting with authority or status or some kind of strong position is very evident in the chart. And it applies both to what I've said about international affairs and also applies to the situation at home as South Africans contemplate the forthcoming election and what to do about the government and who to vote for and all of those things we're individually contemplating. So the chart says where we are really coming from is what is our identity. And hopefully that is a question that people will take out into their contemplation about the election and how to create the right government for this country. So that is something that is strong as a theme, but not easily resolved. The chart shows a lot of confusion around about identity, and politicians will jump on that. There will be a lot of deceiving and lying and claiming, and we're already seeing a lot of that, of course, as usual by the ruling party, but also by everyone else as well. Be prepared for lies, deceit, misdirection, and all of those things like on a scale we haven't seen before, because everyone's kind of trying to cover up their own issues while advocating some kind of great ideal. Nevertheless, that great ideal of what is South Africa and who is South Africa is something that's very much on the table at this time. And for the most part, is something that is positively shown in this chart for April. And that is something that I do want to stress, that to a large extent, the chart suggests that slowly we are recovering our identity. We are winning in the battle of establishing a meaningful and authoritative identity for ourselves and hopefully in the world. When we look further at the chart, in fact, dialogue with the world, communicating to the world, getting our message out into the world is something that's relevant in the chart and is likely to happen. Like with the identity, there's a plus and a minus shown in the chart at the same time. We know that's true, and we know it's quite typical of how things work in this country. For the most part, it's shown as very successful. We are getting a strong message into the world, and even if we haven't seen all the levels of reaction that we perhaps would like to, we will be seeing that. We will be seeing more and more countries, even during the course of this month, beginning to align themselves closer with what South Africa did represent at the ICJ, or with the ongoing demands and requests by this country for the International Court to do more about it. And perhaps in the course of this month, our voice is amplified by the voices of others. It certainly looks like that. What is also evident, though, is that the rest of the world is not entirely fooled by where South Africa is coming from. Probably not too much of an issue, because the rest of the world cares less about our internal politics than our external politics. But some of that might also be a little bit relevant as some people contemplate the possibility of a change of government, or even eventually a change of president, which also then changes how they relate to us. South Africa is on an edge where a lot of the traditional allies of this country don't like our alliance with the rest of BRICS and the rest of the world, but the world is shifting that way. And so renegotiation and rethinking about some of that positioning will probably happen as the government changes as well. Chances are then that if there is a coalition in this country, or some other government other than the current system, and stay tuned next month for the election analysis that's going to answer that question for you. You really can expect that they are thinking, are we going to negotiate with? Will South Africa move away from its alliance, like with Russia and Palestine and all of those kind of things? Whether or not we do, and we probably won't, because the chart looks very clear on this identity that we have re-established recently. Nevertheless, we might be in a better position to negotiate and interact with the world with a less narrow-visioned ANC, which tends to be a little bit contradictory in how it approaches those things, because we know it does feel the obligation to stand up for our image, but at the same time, we know that they do tend to play both sides like most politicians do. What exciting things are going on there. But the result of that is exciting for us because it helps us recapture our identity. It helps us recapture our dialogue with the world as these months go ahead. So that is something that's very important here. Nevertheless, don't forget about all that confusion type thing that I said that is going to have an effect. And so we need to be very aware, be very careful of who we listen to, and be very clear for ourselves on what we think and where we stand in what we believe, and then looking for a party that is aligned with that rather than listening to too much of the hype. Financial situation is not looking too great in this country, but is participating in what we do see here, and that is this up and down mixed bag of everything that seems to be really the theme at the moment. There's a strong positive and a strong negative for everything. Our identity, our communication with the world, our deception. There's a lot going on behind the scenes there. More about that in a second. But as I was saying, also the financial situation as well, which does look, for the most part, it survives. Things are kind of getting worse at the same time as resources are somehow improving. So perhaps there is a little bit of success in reclaiming some money, as we've often been trying to do, from various sources where it should never have gone. It does look like the country's coffers increase, but the financial situation does not. The corruption with respect to money does not, and we'll see a lot of that coming out into the open as the political battles intensify. Finger pointing, as we know, sometimes happens, perhaps often happens in this country, political violence, all of those are still on the table, but things are more out in the open. So perhaps that's a reduction of the political violence and an increase of all the finger pointing. And that's also going to be rather an opportunity for us to see who are we really playing with. Let's break through the deception. Who are we really playing with? Who really means what? What are their real policies? Because everyone's full of a lot of hot air, and it's really hard to see how any of them might actually turn any of that into something meaningful. The good news in the chart, not surprisingly, is sport and arts. We've seen the amazing ascent of the artist Tyler winning a Grammy Award and bringing a great deal of joy and excitement into our arts community and into our culture. There's definitely some kind of emphasis on the arts this month. I think we're going to be seeing more of her and perhaps someone else or some others. Also, astrology doesn't distinguish very strongly between art and sport. They fit into the same category. So we are going to see finally, perhaps those Olympic dreams of ours beginning to become a little bit more manifest as we prepare for the Olympics, and perhaps see that female star that was hinted in the year ahead, you may remember, that looks like is going to carry some of our glory into the Olympics. So we're still in the tenuous up and down mixed situation that we found ourselves in, and the confusion and the deception is real, but it's perfectly timed. It's going to give us an opportunity to rethink the whole thing. In fact, to put it in that kind of political language, to rethink the whole South African project. Let's get back to not just being a rainbow, which is imaginary and has an imaginary pot of gold in the end, but finally, perhaps breaking through all the lies we've always been told and actually pulling ourselves together to stand up, as the chart says, Saturn says, to stand up and say, here I am, I mean something, I can have an impact, take it or leave it. South Africa, the world, this is South Africa. We're all part of that. This is our chance to make it happen. Looking at the month ahead for us all, and starting with you, Aries, well, on the subject of money, you need to take it a little bit more carefully. The chart shows big expenses or unexpected expenses, or even just not obvious expenses, but somehow the money is still managing to find itself out of your wallet and somewhere into the world where you can't find it. So this is the month to hold tight onto your money and also be careful about spending it on pipe dreams or ideals that you're not actually able to turn into anything useful in your life, things that fizzle out. So focus on where you're spending your money, Focus on how it relates to tangible goals that are actually going to turn into something real, because right now it seems as if it's being spent on things that aren't really real or aren't really beneficial or useful to you. You could be your own worst enemy at this time, not only in terms of finance, but also in terms of believing in yourself and standing up for yourself and all of that. It's one of those months to act as if, be the boss, be in charge, be strong about what you're doing, even if you're feeling not so strong, even if you don't feel the confidence in who you are, act as if, and it's going to work for you. Stand up there, they'll all believe it. Taurus, you need to change a few things around you in order for things to work better for you. And that's actually going to be great as long as you don't hang on to things out of habit or old beliefs and get stuck. Luckily, it's not such a sticky time for you, but it doesn't seem obvious how you're going to benefit from making changes right now, and that might stop you. Make the changes and look out for the good results in the many months ahead, not just in this month. It's almost like this month is a little bit preparatory, and you're just doing some of the background work, including making all those changes around you, and you'll see the results a little bit later on. Don't panic if you don't see instant results of some kind, because for the most part, goals, plans, ideas, and ideals, they're all working for you, Taurus. It's just that slow but sure Taurus thing that's actually happening in the background. So keep at it. You don't have to make anything known or put it out there yet. That's also true in your personal life. Your feelings are strong. Might take a little while before you get all of those things out into the open. For those of you entering into new partnerships, however, this is the time to really make that connection, or where the possibility is there, this is the time to really make that connection. Your feelings are strong. You're connecting with new people and new environments around yourself. Hey, relationships can only benefit from that. Gemini, you probably also need to sort out a few financial matters before you can go ahead. But this is a great opportunity to kind of sort out some things once and for all. In your financial life, and possibly also elsewhere in your life, you need to identify where you are behaving as your own enemy, or where you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. And it's the kind of thing where one of your weaknesses is possibly getting the better of you. So whether that's just a bad habit and you've been spending the money on the wrong things, or more commonly, it's because of your weakness with respect to someone else that you're letting them get away with you ending up in the situation. It's not their fault, but it's you who's not having tight boundaries and clear policies about what you're doing with your money and how you see yourself in this situation right now, which is what's important. It's a great opportunity to talk about things, negotiation at this time, standing up for yourself, where you really need to do those kind of things. It's like clear your space, make it very clear where you stand. Just like I was saying about the country earlier on, this is a time to communicate who you are and where you stand and put clear boundaries around that. In your personal life, it's going to work really well. It's such a great month for communication. You can only see great results if you open your mouth. Cancer, what fun. I mean, I seem to remember you had a bit of a fun month last month. Well, not necessarily fun, but making things really work for you. Well, this is the fun month. This is where things look better and feel better, and you get to do things that you love. That is the theme for your month, Cancerians. Focusing on things that you love, people that you love, connections that all make you feel a lot better about your life and about yourself. That's great news. It's really going to work for you, but it's especially where you need to get noticed, whether that's at work or in your personal life. The energy is on you, the eyes are on you, so you can really make other things work for you, such as your plans, or where you need to be heard, or especially where you need the help or support or input of others. This is a great time to do that. Many of you are also very creative and have got things up your sleeve that you might be feeling a little bit too shy or a little bit too insecure to show. Whether it's exactly those or any other insecurities, now's the time to get rid of those by getting your stuff out there into the world. Hey, you might be the next Tyler or some great artist if it's something in the arts, but whatever it is, it's time to put your ideas out there and get some attention for them. Yes, it is a bit kind of back to the grindstone. Lots of hard work to be done and lots of work behind the scenes to be done, but it's going to pay off because in front of the scenes, you're going to be seeing the results of that pretty soon. So it's definitely worth your projects, your efforts, and especially those that involve other people. This is a great time to have a look at those other people and see who really works for you and who doesn't. It seems that at this time you've got a great team around you, directly or indirectly, other people helping you achieve your goals and make it all happen. And this is good. And for the most part, they're great. But there is an indication in the chart that you possibly could do either with fewer, or perhaps it's just that you're not looking closely enough at everyone and you've allowed some people into your team that are not really ideal for you. Could just be wasting your money, wasting your resources. Nothing more extreme than that. But still, this is a good time to clean house. This is also a great time for all your own personal, fun, pleasurable things, even your romantic life is beginning to look like an improvement. At the very least, that's social life. So in all that work, let that team do some stuff for you and make sure you're having fun too. Talk about being heard, Virgos. I think I was talking about you because it really looks like this is one of those times when your words fall on receptive ears. So this is a great opportunity, firstly, for communication in all your relationships. If there's something that you've been needing to say or want to say or has landed on your table and it's time to speak up, well, this is the speak up time. Naturally, you're a very deferent sign. You put other people first, you'll often let them speak first, or even if you've got a very strong opinion of your own, you might let them state their opinion first and not always say anything in return. This is the time to have an opinion, to say something in return, but still to tread a little bit carefully, because if it ends up in an argument, the odds are still not in your favor, because it does look like that being different to others but having a strong opinion can cause a little bit of a clash. So make sure your helpfulness and your wanting to be useful to others has got its own place, but there are other areas where opinion is important, where your own ideas are important, where that is winning. Lead the pack with your ideas, be the boss with your ideas, or just keep to yourself and follow them on your own. But this is the time the world is actually hearing you. Libra, it's time to plug a few of the gaps. I mean, things are going well and there's no enormous danger, but there are some leaks going on, by which I mean your resources or your energy going to other people where it doesn't benefit you. In fact, for some Librans, I would have to caution you to not have the wool pulled over your eyes at this time, that you need to be a little bit more careful about who you're dealing with. There is an underlying threat of deceit that you might have heard me talking about at the beginning of this show today. And some of that applies directly to you. It might not be someone who's trying to hurt you, but in pursuing their own agendas, they easily cover up yours. So make sure you know where your money is going when it's going to other people or other resources like that as well. Never mind your money, it also might be where you're depending on incoming. Well, it ain't incoming. Be that money or anything else you need from other people. This is not a time to be depending for anything. It's a time to pull in a little bit and maybe focus on personal own stuff, your spiritual life, your time spent with doing things that you love to do. It's not such a great time to be connecting with all those people around you. You just need to take a bit of a break, take a little bit of stock, focus on your own life, and it's looking good. So you can appreciate that and build on that. Scorpio, the past might be coming back to haunt you, or to at least have you sort some things out. Something far away or long forgotten or something like that seems to be back on the table at this time. And instead of getting frustrated and letting you bother you, and I can't believe this is back in my life again, this is your opportunity to sort something out once and for all. You might need to take a firm approach, whether it's that and or other things in your life as well. And this is a time to be very careful that that doesn't turn into conflict, but you still have to take that firm approach. So stand up for yourself, and especially in relationships, you actually can be understood and heard. So there's no need for it to escalate in any kind of a way. Your position is well understood because it looks like in relationships you could be on the same page. So this is a great time to put it out there and make sure that you are. There are some things, though, whether it's to do with that relationship or the past or elsewhere, that cannot be simply resolved. And so that will also require you to let go, which might be the way that you can end up avoiding conflict. Let go, avoid the conflict, but stand up for what you do need to say. Sagittarius, go out and get it because it's there for you. That means your goals are turning out and manifesting what you are pursuing this month. Well, not exactly what you're pursuing, because it looks like you might change some of the goals anyway, but the goals are kind of changing themselves. So you need to be a little bit flexible, and take a bit of a dynamic approach to the results that you're getting. It looks like most things are producing great results. So even if they're not exactly what you thought you were going after, they're going to really work for you. That's all professional goals as well as personal goals. And that can also include the environment around you. It looks like whether that's the neighborhood or something to do with the immediate world around you, some changes need to be made, and this could be the time to make those more successfully. You also need to be a little bit courageous and maybe even daring somewhere in your life this month. Well, of all the people in the zodiac, you're the last one to worry about that. That's easy. Rush in where angels fear to tread. You and the Aries of this world love doing that, and this time it's really going to produce some of those unexpected but good results that you've been looking at. There can be some financial benefits this month, but it mostly looks like that's even. Ingoing and outgoing look the same for you this month, Sagittarius. So focus on the goals and the unexpected results rather than the specific ones you're going after, and you'll still feel very satisfied about it all. Capricorn, well, this month you might have to adjust some of your goals and ideals because things are not necessarily working out exactly the way that you thought. But this is a great time to take a completely revolutionary approach to what some of those goals or ideals actually are, and maybe rethink some of your dreams and go for bigger ones, because this is the time to go for bigger in your chart. Similar to the country, you might find yourself also having to stand up and say, hello, world, this is who I am, and take it or leave it. So this means in some situations in your life, acting with authority, standing up and kind of calling the shots. It's not something that you naturally find difficult to do, but you might not want to do it at this particular time. You might prefer to be a bit behind the scenes. That's not going to work for you. So you're going to have to stand up for yourself or for whatever it is that you're busy with and assert the position of authority, and this is how it's going to be. But it also means a reorientation for yourself, stripping away the unessentials, focusing on what's important, redefining the ideals. It's time to get real and time to get making that real happen. So, an important month for you, Capricorns, in terms of changing what your goals ahead will turn out to be all about. Aquarians, you might have been swallowing your anger or swallowing something for a little bit too long. So it is time to spit that out. But for the most part, not a great month for conflict. So swallowing the anger and then spitting it out means that you're going to engage in a battle. You might come a little bit short in that battle. You might have to move away rather than engage in conflict. But you need to let go of some kind of burden that you've been carrying or some kind of frustration that you seem to have been carrying with respect to other people, or perhaps with respect to some of your own bigger ideals or things like that. Mostly, it actually looks financial in your chart, and there's like whether it's debt or other financial situations lurking from the past that are still pressing on you at this time, and you might need to just resolve those once and for all. Borrowed money or something like this, it's time to call it back in, or anything else to bring things back into balance. That's what's necessary for you at this time. It's hard for you to be understood at the best of times, and April is also one of those. So another route to avoiding conflict for you this month is just do your own thing. As ever, keep with your own stuff. You don't have to talk about it. You'll get it done, and then they'll see how amazing it was. Pisces, you're the one who seems to pick up the theme of the country most strongly of all, and that is the question of identity. But of course, it's much more local and personalized and related to what's going on in your life. So, in some areas of your life, you need to figure out, who am I? What am I doing here? Let me say that. And rather than just floating along and people are either taking you for granted or not sure of what you're doing there or something like that, this is the time to make it very clear for yourself and for them what it is that you're doing there. You don't have to be there. You could be doing your own things as well. It's a really great time for pursuing personal goals and making stuff happen. You'll have to change some things around you. That's mostly the people around you and be in perhaps a different environment in order for this to really happen, and in order for you to be able to sort out the question of who am I and what am I busy doing at the moment. So it's a refresh and a rethink, Pisces, out with the old and in with the new. This is a time to really live up to the promise of the birthday that you've just had and start a whole fresh new year for yourself, making a sense of a new identity that goes along with it. Well, as promised, looks like a kind of good month for most of us, even if there's work to be done, just like there is for the rest of the country. Make sure you subscribed and checking in to see the unfolding dialogues as we move towards the election next month. See you there.